The distress signal cut through the void of space like a desperate scream. Commander Zaratek pressed her four-fingered hand against the communication console, watching the energy readings of their dying fleet. 300 ships, all that remained of the Kyrian civilization, drifted in the darkness between stars. Life support failing on transport vessels 7 through 15, her second-in-command reported. His voice carried the weight of their species' doom. Zaratek closed her 6 eyes, each one seeing a different spectrum of light, all showing the same grim reality. Their sun had gone nova 3 cycles ago. The radiation storms that followed had poisoned their colonies. Now, 12 billion Kyrians were reduced to barely 2 million refugees, cramped in ships never meant for such long journeys. There, the navigator suddenly called out, "I'm detecting a habitable system. Single star, stable. 9 planets." Hope flickered in Zaratek's chest. They had passed 17 systems already, all either dead or claimed by species who met their pleas with weapons fire. The Kyrians were not a warrior race. They were builders, artists, scientists. Their greatest weapons were designed for mining asteroids, not fighting wars. Scans show the 3rd planet has abundant water and oxygen, the navigator continued. But, Commander, it's inhabited. Of course it was. Zaratek felt her hope crumble. Another civilization meant another rejection, another battle they couldn't win, more Kyrian lives lost to the uncaring universe. Population density? She asked, dreading the answer. Approximately 8 billion entities. They call themselves humans. Their technology appears to be. The navigator paused, rechecking his readings. This can't be right. They've barely achieved fusion power. No energy shields. Primitive space travel limited to their own system. Zaratek's lesser hearts began pumping faster. A pre-stellar civilization. They wouldn't have the technology to detect the Kyrian fleet until it was too late. Her military advisors would tell her to take the planet by force. It would be easy. The humans wouldn't stand a chance. But the Kyrians had never been conquerors. The thought of genocide made her primary stomach turn. "Open all communication channels," she ordered. "Broadcast in every frequency they use." "Commander," respectfully, revealing ourselves to a primitive species, "we are not the Garathi Empire," Zaratek interrupted. "We will not become monsters just to survive. Open the channels." The communication officer's tentacles danced across the controls. Soon, every human device capable of receiving signals would hear their message. Zaratek spoke slowly, clearly, knowing the translation matrix would convert her words into dozens of human languages. "People of Earth, we are the Kyrians. We come to you not as invaders, but as refugees. Our home is gone, destroyed by our dying star. We have traveled far, seeking shelter, and found only closed doors and hostile weapons. We are tired. We are dying. Our children cry for a home they will never see again. We ask not for your world, only for a small piece of it. A place to rest, a place to rebuild. We have knowledge to share, technology to trade. But more than that, we have families who just want to live. Please, we ask for mercy." The bridge fell silent. Zaratek waited. The human response would come soon. Would it be fighter craft? Nuclear weapons? Or simply silence as they pretended not to hear? The communication console crackled to life. A human voice, speaking in oddly accented Kyrian. The translation matrix must have worked both ways. "Kyrian fleet. This is Secretary General Chun of the United Nations of Earth. We have received your message. Please hold your position. We need to talk about this. All of us." Zaratek exchanged glances with her officers. "Talk." The Salvari had opened fire within minutes. The Draxi hadn't even responded before launching their attack. Hours passed. The Kyrian fleet held position beyond Earth's moon, watching the blue-green planet spin slowly in the darkness. Zaratek could see the lights of their cities on the night side, sprawling constellations of human life. So fragile, so beautiful. Finally, the response came. "Kyrian fleet, this is Secretary General Chen again. I'll be honest with you. We're scared. We've dreamed of meeting life from the stars, but we never imagined it would be like this. 2 million refugees, that's a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of homes to build. There are people down here who think we should say no. People who think we should hide and hope you go away. Zaratek's hope dimmed. Another rejection. At least the humans were polite about it. But Chun continued. However, I've just come from the General Assembly. We've been debating for 6 hours straight. Do you know what convinced us? It wasn't your technology or what you could offer us. It was when you said your children cry for a home they'll never see again. Because we know what that's like. Too many of us have been refugees. Too many of us have knocked on doors that wouldn't open. The Secretary General paused. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. The vote wasn't unanimous. It never is with humans. But it was enough. Earth extends its welcome to the Kyrian people. We don't have much, and what we have we'll need to share. It won't be easy, but welcome to Earth. Welcome home. Zaratek couldn't speak. Around her, the bridge erupted in sounds of joy and disbelief. Her communication officer was crying. Her navigator was praying. Her second-in-command was already calculating landing trajectories. But Zaratek just stared at the blue planet below, this impossible world that had done what no other would do. These humans, barely able to leave their own atmosphere, had opened their doors to strangers from the stars. Commander, her cultural advisor whispered. What do we do now? Zaratek straightened in her command chair. We do what Kyrians do best. We build. We create. We contribute. These humans have given us a gift beyond measure. We will spend the rest of our lives ensuring they never regret it. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. My people, Earth has offered us sanctuary. Prepare for descent protocols. And remember, we are no longer just Kyrians. From this day forward, we are neighbors, partners, and friends to humanity. Let's be worthy of their trust. As the Kyrian fleet began its careful approach to Earth, guided by human traffic controllers who had never directed alien vessels before, something beautiful happened. The fear on both sides began to fade, replaced by curiosity, hope, and the beginning of something neither species had expected. Friendship. But the universe was vast and full of dangers. And those who had turned the Kyrians away would soon learn that humanity's kindness was matched only by their ferocity when protecting those they called their own. The Kyrians had asked for shelter. What they would receive was a family willing to stand against the darkness of space itself. The real story was just beginning. The first Kyrian settlement rose from the Australian outback like a flower blooming in fast motion. Human engineers stood slack-jawed as Kyrian construction drones assembled buildings from raw desert sand, transforming silica into gleaming structures that seemed to defy gravity. Within 3 weeks, what had been empty wasteland became a city of graceful spires and flowing architecture. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the UN liaison assigned to the settlement, watched a Kyrian child play with a human boy near the community center. The Kyrian youth had 6 eyes and tentacle-like appendages, but children were children everywhere. They were building something in the sand, laughing in 2 different languages, but understanding each other perfectly. Your people learn fast, Kodar, the settlement administrator, said beside her. His translator gave him a pleasant British accent, though Sarah knew his actual voice was more like whispered music. So do yours, Sarah replied. I saw a group of Kyrian teenagers playing soccer yesterday. They were terrible at it, but they were having fun. Kodar's eyes crinkled in what Sarah had learned was a smile. We have much to learn from each other. Your people's art, your music, it's unlike anything we've encountered. And your food, he gestured excitedly. Who knew there were so many ways to prepare nutrients? Our food synthesizers are efficient, but your pizza is joy in physical form. Sarah laughed, but her smile faded as her phone buzzed with an urgent alert. The message made her blood run cold. What's wrong? Kodar asked, reading her expression with uncanny accuracy. Long-range sensors have detected ships approaching Earth. Alien ships, not yours. The color drained from Kodar's blue-tinted skin. How many? 40 vessels. They'll be here in 6 days. Both of them knew Earth's defenses were pitiful by galactic standards. Humanity had nuclear weapons, but those were firecrackers compared to alien shields and energy weapons. The Kyrians had brought incredible technology, but they were builders, not warriors. Their ships were transports and colony vessels, not battlecruisers. Within hours, panic gripped both populations. The approaching fleet had been identified as the Garathi Empire, the same civilization that had turned the Kyrians away with violence. Apparently, they had tracked the refugee fleet to Earth and were coming to finish what they started. In the UN Security Council chambers, the debate was fierce and desperate. "We should evacuate the Kyrians," one ambassador suggested. "If they leave, maybe the Garathi will follow them. Abandon 2 million refugees to save ourselves?" The Canadian representative slammed her fist on the table. "Have we learned nothing from our own history? What else can we do?" The Chinese delegate asked. "We have no weapons that can touch them." Secretary General Chun stood slowly. "Then we build them. The Kyrians have the knowledge. We have the resources and industrial capacity. Together, maybe 6 days," the Russian general interrupted. "You want to build a space fleet in 6 days?" "No," a new voice said from the doorway. Commander Zaratek entered, flanked by human and Kyrian engineers. "Not a fleet. Something else. Something the Garathi won't expect." She activated a holographic display showing ship designs unlike anything humans had seen. The Garathi are conquerors. They expect enemies to either flee or fight conventionally. But humans, you think differently. Your history is full of asymmetric warfare, of smaller forces defeating larger ones through innovation and determination. "What are you proposing?" Chen asked. "We combine our technologies, Kyrian shields and power systems with human weapons and tactics. But more than that," she paused, looking around the room. "We show the galaxy something new. We show them what happens when 2 species stand together." The next 6 days blurred into a frenzy of activity. Human factories retooled overnight, producing weapons based on Kyrian energy manipulation. Kyrian engineers worked alongside human programmers to create targeting systems that merged both species' approaches to combat. In orbit, the International Space Station was transformed into a defensive platform bristling with hybrid technology. But the real work happened in the hearts and minds of both species. Human volunteers lined up to crew the hastily constructed defense ships, even knowing they were likely flying to their deaths. Kyrian scientists shared their most guarded secrets, breaking centuries of tradition to arm their new protectors. Children drew pictures of victory and stuck them to the hulls of ships. Religious leaders from both species held joint prayer services. Captain James Chun, no relation to the Secretary General, found himself in command of humanity's first true warship, the UES Defiance. His crew was half human, half Kyrian, and completely untested. As they watched the Garathi fleet approach on long-range sensors, the bridge was thick with tension. "They're broadcasting," his Kyrian communications officer announced. The main screen filled with the image of a Garathi commander, a creature that looked like someone had crossed a mantis with a nightmare. "Primitives of Earth, you harbor fugitives from Garathi justice. Surrender the Kyrians, and we may show mercy." Chan stood, unconsciously straightening his hastily designed uniform. "This is Captain Chun of the United Earthship Defiance. The Kyrians are under our protection. Any act of aggression against them or Earth will be met with." The Garathi commander's laugh cut him off. It sounded like breaking glass. "Protection? You barely have space flight. Stand aside, primitive, or be swept aside." The channel closed. Chun looked at his mixed crew. Humans and Kyrians working side by side, ready to die together. Well, they warned us. Battle stations. What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the Battle of Earth's Shield. The Garathi came in arrogant and overconfident, expecting to brush aside Earth's defenders like insects. They were not prepared for human nuclear weapons, enhanced with Kyrian energy manipulation, creating explosions that could crack their shields. They were not prepared for human pilots who flew like madmen, using tactics no sane spacefaring species would consider. They were not prepared for Kyrian technical genius married to human stubborn refusal to surrender. The Defiance took hit after hit, her hybrid shields flickering but holding, Chin's tactical officer, a young Kyrian named Varyase, had discovered something in the heat of battle. Human intuition combined with Kyrian calculation created firing solutions the Garathi computers couldn't predict. "Target their command ship," Chun ordered. "Everything we've got." "Captain," his human weapons officer said, "if we divert all power to weapons, our shields will fail. One hit and we're done." Chun grinned. A fierce expression his Kyrian crew had learned meant humans were about to do something gloriously stupid. "Then, we better not get hit. All power to weapons. Fire." The Defiance's main gun, a terrifying merger of human railgun technology and Kyrian energy projection, spoke with the voice of two civilizations united. The beam carved through space, past the Garathi escorts who were too surprised to intercept, and struck the command ship directly in its primary reactor. The explosion lit up the space around Earth like a second sun. For a moment, both fleets paused. Then, the impossible happened. The Garathi fleet, the terror of 17 systems, began to retreat. They had come expecting easy prey and found instead something new in the galaxy. Two species willing to die for each other. As the enemy fled, damaged but not destroyed, Earth's defenders counted their losses. 3 of their makeshift warships were gone, hundreds of humans and Kyrians dead. But they had won. They had stood together and won. But in the depths of space, aboard his damaged flagship, the Garathi commander sent a message to his empire. The primitives of Earth and their refugee friends had won this day, but the Garathi would return. And next time, they would bring a real fleet. Back on Earth, as the victory celebrations began, Zaratek found Secretary General Chun standing alone on the UN building's observation deck, looking up at the stars. "They'll be back," Chun said quietly. "Yes," Zaratek agreed. "But when they do, we'll be ready. Humans and Kyrians together." Chun nodded slowly. "We need to build proper defenses. A real fleet. This won't be the last time Earth needs protecting." Zaratek placed a 4-fingered hand on his shoulder. "You gave us a home when no one else would. We will help you defend it against anyone who threatens it. This is our world now, too." As they stood together, human and Kyrian, looking up at the stars that suddenly seemed less friendly but more manageable, neither knew that their victory would send ripples across the galaxy. Word would spread of the tiny blue planet that had taken refugees and then fought off an empire to protect them. Some would see it as inspiration, others as a challenge. But Earth would be ready, because Earth now had something more powerful than any weapon. It had unity between species, forged in kindness and tempered in battle. The age of Earth standing alone was over. The age of Earth, standing for something, had begun. 0.5 years had transformed Earth from an isolated world to a beacon of hope in a dark galaxy. The blue planet now sparkled with orbital shipyards where human ambition merged with Kyrian engineering. Cities on the surface had grown upward and outward, incorporating Kyrian architecture that made concrete and steel sing. Children grew up bilingual, speaking both human languages and the musical tones of Kyrian. Admiral Sarah Martinez, promoted from her liaison position after showing exceptional leadership during the integration years, stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the UES Unity. The ship was a marvel, 2 kilometers of human determination wrapped in Kyrian technology, armed with weapons that made the Garathi think twice about returning. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress signal," her communications officer reported. The young man was human, but the neural implants behind his ears were Kyrian technology, allowing him to process multiple communication streams simultaneously. "Source?" Sarah asked. "The Valorant system, Admiral. It's the Salvari." A hush fell over the bridge. Every crew member, human and Kyrian alike, knew that name. The Salvari were among the first to turn the Kyrian refugees away with violence, destroying 12 ships before the fleet could escape. "The message is fragmented," the officer continued. "Something about a plague, failing life support, children dying." Sarah's jaw tightened. The irony was sharp enough to cut. "How many ships do they have?" "Sensor data suggests around 50 vessels, Admiral." all in critical condition. Commander Kodar, now Earth's military liaison, materialized on the holographic display. His 6 eyes showed conflicting emotions. Admiral Martinez, you cannot be considering they left us to die. Another Kyrian officer interrupted, pain evident in her voice. My mate was on one of the ships they destroyed. Sarah raised a hand for silence. Around Earth, she knew this same debate was happening. The Salvari were asking for help from the very people they had tried to murder. Every human and Kyrian had an opinion, and most of them involved telling the Salvari exactly where they could stick their distress signal. But Sarah remembered something Chun had said years ago, before his retirement. We don't get to choose who deserves mercy. We only get to choose whether we're the kind of people who show it. Open a channel to Earth Command, she ordered. The debate raged for hours. The Security Council was divided. The Kyrian Refugee Council was torn between justice and mercy. Social media exploded with arguments. Some pointed out the practical benefits. The Salvari had advanced medical technology that could help both species. Others argued it was a trap. Finally, President Harrison, Earth's first leader elected by both humans and Kyrians, made the decision. We are not them. We will not become them. Send the fleet. The journey to the Valorant system took 3 days at maximum speed. Sarah's fleet, 30 ships crewed by both species, arrived to find a nightmare. The Salvari vessels hung dead in space, minimal power, life support failing. The plague had ravaged them, leaving millions dead or dying. Admiral, the ship's doctor, a Kyrian named Thyla, reported from the medical bay. I've analyzed their plague. It's artificial, biological warfare. Who did this to them? Sarah asked, though she suspected the answer. The Garathi, Admiral. The biological signature is unmistakable. Of course, the Garathi had been busy in the 5 years since Earth had embarrassed them. If they couldn't conquer directly, they would use other methods. Incoming transmission from the Salvari command ship, the communications officer announced. The screen showed a Salvari commander, one of the scaled, reptilian beings who had once fired on defenseless refugees. Now that same commander looked broken, desperate. Earth vessels, please. We know we have no right to ask. We know what we did to the Kyrians. But our children, please. They're dying. Sarah looked at her mixed crew. Some faces showed satisfaction at seeing their former tormentors brought low. Others showed the conflict between justice and compassion. But what struck her most were the young officers, human and Kyrian, who had grown up in the merged culture of the new Earth. They looked puzzled by the hesitation. To them, the answer was obvious. Deploy medical teams, Sarah ordered. All ships begin evacuation protocols. We're taking them back to Earth. Admiral, her tactical officer, warned. The Garathi could be watching. If they see us helping their victims, then they'll learn something about Earth, Sarah replied. We protect those who need protection, even former enemies. The evacuation was massive. Salvari refugees filled human and Kyrian ships, their children staring in wonder at the beings who had come to save them. Medical teams worked around the clock, using human determination and Kyrian knowledge to fight a plague designed to be unstoppable. On the journey back to Earth, something unexpected happened. In the medical bays, Kyrian doctors found themselves working to save the species that had once tried to destroy them. Human nurses tended to Salvari children while their parents watched in amazement. Slowly, painfully, understanding began to grow. A Salvari elder approached Thyla during a brief rest period. Why? He asked simply. Why save us after what we did? Thyla's 6 eyes focused on him. Because on Earth, we learned something. Mercy isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength any civilization can show. The humans taught us that. Now we teach you. But the galaxy wasn't done testing Earth's resolve. As the fleet approached Earth, alarms screamed across every bridge. A massive Garathi armada, over 200 ships, blocked their path. The Garathi Emperor himself appeared on screen, resplendent in his battle armor. Earth fleet, he sneered. You dare interfere with Garathi justice? The Salvari are plague carriers now, a danger to all. Destroy them, or we destroy you all. Sarah felt the weight of command crushing down on her. Her fleet was outnumbered 4-1. They had refugees in their holds, plague victims who couldn't fight. The smart move was to comply, to save Earth and the Kyrians by sacrificing the Salvari. Admiral, her tactical officer whispered, "We can't win this fight." Sarah stood slowly, looking around her bridge at the faces of humanity and Kyrian unity. She thought of Earth, that blue marble that had become a symbol of something greater. She thought of the children in their holds, human, Kyrian, and now Salvari, all depending on them. "No," she said quietly. Then louder, "No. Open a channel to the entire galaxy. Wideband, all frequencies." When the channel opened, Sarah didn't just speak to the Garathi. She spoke to every civilization within range of their transmitters. "This is Admiral Sarah Martinez of Earth. 5 years ago, we were nothing to you. A primitive world, barely worth noticing. Then the Kyrians came to us, refugees seeking shelter. We took them in, not because of what they could give us, but because it was right. Today we carry Salvari, refugees, victims of biological warfare. The Garathi demand we murder them or face destruction ourselves." She paused, feeling the weight of history. "To the Garathi, I say this: you will not pass. To the galaxy, I say this: Earth stands for something. We stand for the idea that strength isn't measured in weapons, but in the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand for the radical notion that different species can live together, work together, die together if necessary. You want these refugees? You go through us." The channel closed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Garathi fleet began to advance, weapons charging. But before the first shot could be fired, space erupted with arriving ships. Dozens, then hundreds of vessels dropped out of hyperspace. Sarah's eyes widened as she recognized the designs. Valoran merchants, Threllan explorers, even a contingent from the Draxi Republic. Ships from a dozen civilizations, all moving to stand with Earth's fleet. A communication came through from the lead Draxi ship. "Earth fleet, this is Captain Vorik. We have watched. We have learned. You showed mercy to those who showed you none. You stood against Empire for refugees, not your own. Today we stand with Earth." The Garathi Emperor's composure cracked as more ships arrived. The primitive world his empire had dismissed now stood at the center of an impromptu alliance, brought together not by treaties or trade, but by the simple act of consistent compassion backed by steadfast resolve. "This is impossible," he snarled. "No, Sarari Blaith. This is what happens when you lead by example instead of fear. This is what happens when you build instead of destroy. This is Earth." The Garathi, faced with a united fleet and the dawning realization that their empire's foundation of fear was crumbling, retreated. They would return to their space diminished, their reputation as unstoppable conquerors forever broken by a small blue world that had chosen kindness and defended it with warships. As the Allied fleet escorted the refugees to Earth, Sarah received a message from the surface. It was a video of the landing sites being prepared. Humans and Kyrians working side by side, setting up medical facilities, preparing homes. Children had drawn welcome signs in 3 languages. The Salvari commander appeared beside her on the bridge, tears in his reptilian eyes. "We came to conquer you once. We turn away those who needed help. Yet we're Earth," Sarah said simply. "This is what we do. Welcome home." Across the galaxy, the story spread. The small blue world that had taken in one refugee fleet, then defended them against Empire, then saved their former enemies from plague, had changed the fundamental equation of interstellar relations. Civilizations that had spent millennia in cold isolation began reaching out. Treaties were signed not for advantage, but for mutual protection. The age of empires built on fear began to crack. Earth had asked for nothing but peace. In return, it had accidentally become the moral center of known space. Not through conquest, but through the simple, revolutionary act of consistent compassion backed by the willingness to fight for it. The Kyrians had asked Earth for shelter. Earth had given them a home. Together, they had given the galaxy something far more precious: hope for a better future, where species stood together not because they had to, but because it was right. As the sun set over Earth that day, painting the sky in shades of hope, 3 species children played together in the parks of 100 cities. Above them, warships from dozens of civilizations kept watch, protecting not just a world, but an idea. The idea that in the vast, cold darkness of space, kindness was not weakness, but strength, that diversity was not division, but unity, and that sometimes the smallest acts of mercy could change the course of galactic history. Earth stood ready for whatever came next, not alone, but as part of something greater, something that had begun with 2 million refugees and a single word: welcome.